Coming up on a Fan Take Friday, is the Brooklyn Nets fan base set for more disaster in 2025-26? We dive in. Coming up next.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, my friends, it is the Locked On Nets podcast, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. He's Doug Norrie. I'm Adam Marbeck. We thank you, as always, for making us your first listen of the day. We're 100% free on all those great platforms, and let you know, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com today. And oh, baby, do we have a juicy Fan Take Friday from potential trades this offseason for a superstar, whether or not this team is going to be successful, breaking down some of the young players like Dariq Whitehead. How are we, sir, on a fun little Friday episode for yours truly? And I hope you as well.
Hey, look, we're almost through the season here. It's been a fun one, and fun in quotes, but it's been fun on the podcast. I think we've had made the best of, made lemons out of. No, wait, what do you make? Yeah, you make lemonade out of lemons. Just in terms of having a good time with what the Nets season has been. So I kind of thought at the beginning of the season, just to go sort of high level here, I actually thought it would be really hard this year. We went into the season thinking man, this is going to be tough. There's going to be nights where it's just not going to, and that hasn't been the case. I mean, luckily we just got a fan base torn apart about what to do. That's really where we made hay. Was that a fan? The Nets are going to do their thing, and we had a fan base that didn't know if it was coming or going. So I guess that's the lead in for Fan Take Friday. It's thanks to all of us keeping the conversation alive, even though the team has sort of been mired in being mostly pretty bad all season.
Yeah, we were talking about this before we started. Doug was saying the turmoil and angst of other human beings has really been a bit of a salve for his potential dismay around doing this podcast. So shout out to all you for really suffering, because it made things a lot easier for us on the podcast. Before we get into some Dariq Whitehead talk that we wanted to have coming out of yesterday's episode and out of that Raptors game, we have some quotes from Jordi Fernandez as well, talking about expectations for these young players. The one thing that I want to start with was, as this season's winding down and we're talking about the odds and all these percentages in the draft, I was struck with today this moment of, well, what's it going to be like on March 28th, 2026? Because there's a real world, and I wonder if you'll agree or disagree, where the Nets fan base could be sitting there going, hey, who do you think we're going to get in the draft? You think he's going to be like a franchise-changing talent? You think we're on the upswing, guys? Where are we in the Tankathon odds? Top 5? We were supposed to be at least top 4. And what happened to this roster this past season?
Yeah, I mean, very well. We thought this would be a 2-year tank. I mean, we thought that, just going back to the beginning, going into the season, we kind of said this is 2 years. Even if they spiked Cooper Flag this year, which is, statistically improbable at this point, or it was always statistically improbable, but is even more so now. We thought that this was 2 years no matter who they got. And because they had the picks, we know the next year's draft is very deep as well. And they should be incentivized to kind of do the same thing as they did this year, which is take in some, hot flyer guys and guys with upside, maybe try to fill a little salary with other teams don't want to have you anymore, right? And take on an asset here or there and kind of just do business that way. They've signaled that that's going to be the case. So I think that very much so this is going to be a similar situation. I think I just don't know what would change it short of them taking a big swing, but I just don't think that's going to happen this particular offseason.
And so there's two parts to this, because on the one hand, it's maybe it will or will not be starkly different. However, it's going to feel very different if they make all 4 draft picks and you have 4 rookies. And now listen, back into the first round, not every player is going to be starting at the NBA level, right? Maybe a couple of these guys are in the G League or not. We'll see how it all shakes out. But the world where by March of next year, there are 4 rookies that were all taken in this draft class, and they're all playing up on the NBA level, and we don't at least feel, you got to think, you got to be bullish about the guy you take, say 6th overall, 7th overall. You got to feel pretty darn confident about the guy you take in the mid to late teens with a pick from the Bucks. We'll talk more about that later, right? Even the back 2 guys. So 3 out of 4 of these guys have to be check, awesome, going to be great for us, or hey, these are on the right track. And the funny thing about that is, you can look in this roster, while they're not all the Nets draft picks, guys like Keon Johnson, right? Cam Thomas entering in a big offseason, draft pick from the Nets. Day'Ron Sharpe, first-round draft pick from the Nets. Nicholas Claxton, a really important piece. Noah Clowney, right? We'll talk about Dariq Whitehead. there's a litter of guys who have been former first-round draft picks that the Nets took flyers on that haven't worked out, which reminds you that there's a chance that some of these picks the Nets make aren't going to work out. But the cloud that hangs over it to me is, where will we be? There's already a segment of the fan base that says, like, Sean Marks should have been fired, should have been gone. But because of how positively we started with Jordi Fernandez, I'll take it to him. Because of how they started this season as him as a rookie head coach, I think we will judge things differently if we're talking about a 25-win team in March of next year under Jordi Fernandez. We might start to say, oh, has he developed these players the right way? Or, do we still feel as confident as we did at the beginning of his tenure as the Nets head coach?
I mean, look, for Jordi Fernandez is going to be as good as he can be. It's really hard for teams with a lot of rookies to be good, no matter who the rookie is. Like, it is a big time learning curve getting into the NBA and being good. This is why you see rookie, even the best guys.
Spurs, that wasn't, he was great. Didn't make the
All
Spurs
of them.
great his rookie year. Yeah.
All of them. Like last year when Luka makes the finals, you're like, well, that's ahead of schedule. And he's like 25. Right. And I'm being serious. They're like, that's a little ahead of schedule. Like, that's a little ahead of schedule for where these guys are. And so it's just very hard to be good in the NBA consistently for the first couple seasons. It's moving very fast. It's hard on both ends. It's way harder on defense. It's very hard on defense. Like, just understanding the systems that you have to play in, the structure you need to stay in, like exactly where you should be. It's rookies struggle so much on defense. And I know that's like an underrated part of the game, but it's just true. They do. And so overall, they're just almost for sure just going to be worse. Like, if they're going to have 4 rookies and they're going to play these guys like real minutes or whatever, any of them, it's like, let me put it this way. It's going to be hard to imagine they're better, a lot better. If that's who they're giving a lot of playing time to, even if these guys are really good. Like, look what we're watching with Noah Clowney right now. Noah Clowney has struggled this year. Yeah. He struggled this year. Like, it's not a linear path on the success. So I think just an easy thing is, if the more the rookies play, the worse you're going to be. And that's just NBA history kind of lining up. That's just how it works. These guys, it takes years to be very good, consistently winning basketball. When you're young, the game is so fast. These guys because the guys are playing are awesome. The guys are playing are awesome. Like, and that's the math just doesn't
Giannis
work.
is coming to town. Get out there. You get out there and get in front of him. You really got to slow this guy down.
It's kind of right. There's no analog for like getting yourself ramped up to NBA speed like when you're in college. It's nothing like Europe's the same. Like, it's just a totally different landscape. Again, just look at the age curve for the guys when they really start hitting it. It's like 26, 27. They're like, we've been at it for 5 or 6 years. We're kind of understand. It's slowed down. Yeah. Now we're good to go. Which is why when you can, sorry, I know you want to say, if these guys can hang on, sometimes if they can just hang on long enough, you start to see some of these guys like start to make careers for themselves. Cause you're like, they just stuck around long enough to put it all together. Not every guy gets a chance. That's the problem.
No, 100%. And it's why sometimes like you see players, I think it's like the balance of the NBA. We talked about this with Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson. Cam Johnson, as we discussed a few episodes ago, he's the more valuable player right now in the NBA for other teams because of what he can do and what he represents, right? It doesn't mean that another 3 years from now, we'll think about Cam Thomas as being like, hey, he's hitting his stride, he's hitting his prime, his offensive game, all of these things. But it's a long journey from A to B. Coming up here in a second, I want to ask one follow-up question around this. And I want to ask all of you on Fan Take Friday, get in the comments about this because it's going to be a good question as we think about the future of the Nets over the upcoming season, plus a conversation around Dariq Whitehead. We'll get into that all here coming up in just one moment.
I before we get that, tell my friends over at FanDuel. March Madness is here. FanDuel's giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. We go all weekend right now with March Madness. You guys, like tipping off here. We're recording this Thursday night. I'm already getting texts about someone's trolling me a little bit about it. We got a bet going on. We're doing Maryland and Florida right now, and I just got a text right in the lead into FanDuel. It's just a little Maryland sighting. So we're hoping Florida -6.5 with our friends over on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on everything from buzzer beaters, Cinderella stories, everything in between, even who's cutting down the nets. You can stay in the action. Easy and fast payouts. It's so super simple to use when you get paid instantly. When you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. Visit FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops action all tournament long at FanDuel.com.
All right, so as we continue today's Locked On Nets episode, talking about Fan Take Friday, a couple of different angles that we want to get to, including a discussion around one Dariq Whitehead. We are also, as Doug mentioned, recording on Thursday evening for our Friday post. So we know that NCAA tournament, do have BYU and Alabama going at it right now. Igor is in the mix here. He has 1 assist. Not a lot going on. But the bottom line is you got the other game tipping off here a little bit as well. Maryland, obviously, with Florida. So those are some games like this is, again, we've talked about this all season long, how college hoops, especially as the season winds down, actually means something different because the Brooklyn Nets have all these picks and there is all this potential to be making significant changes to their roster. So the one thing I want to ask you was, you said team's not going to be better. Now we know the Nets are being intentional at the end of the season here. They're 23-50 right now. Let's just say, regardless of where they're going to, finish in the odds and everything, 25. That's the win total. They get 25 wins this year. If they say they spike and they end up getting the second overall pick and they take Dylan Harper, right? Dylan Harper and any 3 other players in there, they keep Cam Johnson, they bring back D'Angelo Russell and a couple other guys. You think that there'll be a lower win total team next year than however they finish this season?
I mean, it's a little hard to say. I mean, okay, yeah. So it's a little hard to say because I honestly think we have a bad sample size this year for like what this team really is. I think they've just completely outkicked the coverage. I really think a few of those games early, and they're just like a worse team. And like I just think this is giving a false sense of who they are. I do also wonder if like the new coach vibe, not like this is an anti-Jordy thing, but like the new coach vibe wears off a little bit. You're a little bit more into the second year of a tank. You kind of know you're not going anywhere. I wonder if it'll be a little harder to rally the troops. Again, and no shade on him. I just do think, it gets a little tougher.
You'll be rallying
year over year with this.
Now you'll have these rookies. You'll have 4 rookies to rally to. But
again, that's worse. That's worse though. Like that talent wise, that's considerably worse. So I think they're going to be, I think you're going to go into next season and, well, it's funny about this because if you think about what their projected win total is going to be, actually, I take it back a little bit. I think their win total will be a little higher because I think it'll be fresh in people's minds that the Nets just didn't do it this year. Like they didn't go egregious tank, and that's going to factor in a little bit to some of these like projected numbers on them, rightfully so. So maybe they are kind of the same. I take it back. Maybe it is just kind of the same because they're just going to keep trying. You're just going to keep trying when like other teams aren't. I don't know. It's a little hard to answer, but I think it's maybe the same.
And there's a lot of factors too, right? Because you say 23-50 right now, that's 14-40 if you take away the first 19 games where they were 9-10, right? So there's a significant, hey, watch out for that word in case you're trying to say it again later, difference between what they were to start the year with Jordy and then maybe the vibes, as you say, versus where they landed. Now they also made trades like Dorian Finney-Smith and Dennis Schroeder. Now they'll probably make trades next year. Maybe it's going to be Cam Johnson. Maybe it's going to be Nick Claxton, right? So the team is going to go through a shift next season, undoubtedly. I do find it interesting. And again, probably unlike this year, I think, or I'll put this into the fan base's mind, try to associate what's happening now and what happens in the draft around the idea of where it's headed, not where it is. Because I tend to agree with you more so than not that we're not going to be sitting here next year being like, holy cow, they spiked 37 wins with this plucky team. Like, unless they made some choice, and I don't even mean superstar. We'll talk about the Bucks here coming up. But even if they just made a choice around like a certain veteran acquisition in the offseason that helped balance with the rookies, right? If you keep Cam Johnson and you add another experienced veteran to be in the mix, otherwise, we could be talking about one of the youngest rosters in the league, with there's a ton of guys out there that, and we've seen this, by the way, when there's a bunch of young players, you said in the first segment, there's just possessions. You just lose possessions on pure inexperience and not knowing exactly what the plays are and not knowing where guys are going to be. Like turnovers come in bunches when you're young players. So that should be interesting. However,
and again, like you just don't. And last thing on this, it's just underrated. Like now, forgive Nets fans for not knowing because rookies haven't been on this team for like decades. So like Nets fans can be forgiven for not knowing.
Draft caliber rookies that start from day one coming in the door.
Any draft caliber they've had compared to the rest of the league. Nets have had like no draft picks for the last couple of years. Like it's like these guys, and the ones they do have sometimes randomly just don't play for reasons you can never kind of figure out until. It's like, oh, it's like now they get to play. But remember, like Nick Claxton, we were like, hey, maybe can Nick Claxton start? right? Like over some of these guys. Like, is it his turn yet?
DeAndre
Like,
Jordan.
did he play?
That was the conversation. It was DeAndre Jordan roadblocking
I mean,
Nicholas Claxton from being in the starting lineup, right? I
that
mean, think
wasn't
about
that
that.
long ago.
God,
That
what a
wasn't
journey.
that long ago.
No.
Like, and so, and like Cam Thomas, we wait years on. Daron Sharp, like, you don't know if you're coming and going with him. And that's a Clowney. I mean, but he was kind of higher. Dariq, we still haven't talked about in this episode, but like, that's the whole list of draft picks. Like, they don't have any other draft picks. Look at that. So,
poor Jalen Wilson,
don't
we
know.
hardly knew ye coming up in the second round,
Yeah.
and maybe his time's coming to an end before it even begins. Speaking of, though, because I don't want to move beyond this, and I agree with you. This team has not had this type of opportunity in years. Speaking, though, to Dariq Whitehead, when asked about the coaching staff and what their expectations are for him during these NBA call-ups, it's a role that I understand and I have to do, Dariq said, which is make shots and defend, and then I'll get a larger opportunity from there. I'm just trying to make sure I perfect that role before I'll be able to gain a larger role, hopefully. If that's next year or whenever it may be, just showing that I can do the things they want me to do so that eventually leads to more in the future. I mean, first of all, and that comes care of Eric Slater, who asked him that question, friend of the show. I got to tell you, first of all, like, I mean, and Dariq Whitehead clearly has an awareness around it. Injuries and everything else. And it's not like his game has popped since he's gotten to the NBA and the G League, everything else. But that sounds like a guy that is like, hey, man, just let me keep playing. Like, let me just keep trying here. This isn't a dude like Cam Thomas, different trajectory, different path. There were points when Thomas was kind of saying, come on now. Like, I'm ready. Like, let's go.
He came in.
It's something a guy who's like, hey, man, I got to keep working. I got to keep learning, and I'll get there eventually. Two very different players, but it's interesting to hear him have an understanding about like where he is and why it's going to take him probably a while. Like, that sounds like a guy who was like, maybe I'm not in the NBA rotation next season even, and I'm young enough to play the G League and still find a way to the NBA.
I mean, he should definitely play Summer League next year. We'll see, right? Like, I don't know if he's going to or not, but I just know for me on him, I'm just going to be late to Dariq Whitehead. I just know it now. Like, if if it happens, it happens. But I don't think I can be early on like buying stock. And if I miss the opportunity, I miss the opportunity. I just don't see it, and there hasn't been much to make you think that it's there. I'm not claiming it's over. I'm just saying if choosing to buy the stock or just sit this one out, I would definitely just sit this one out. And I don't hold any either, right? And it's just because it's just been, he came in with a few tough pieces with the injuries, and it just has never passed the eye test so far. It doesn't pass the statistical test either. And if he turns the corner and he's awesome, then I'll look bad for not believing or whatever in it. But it's just like there's not been much to hang your hat on here. And I don't know if that's speaking to what you were kind of referring to with him, but I want him to be great. Like, It's awesome. It would be so great if he was great, but so far he's still young. So there's far from over, but it's just, there's been no real sign of it so far.
Yeah, the disappointment for him this year is that I thought this would be a season, right? You said the injuries coming into the draft. That's why his stock falls. That's why the Nets are able to get him later. Okay, fine. Whole first season, don't even think about him. Don't worry about him. Let him get health. Let him figure it out. To not have talked about him more this year because he was up playing with the NBA team, that's the disappointment for me. Now, again, I'm going to keep saying, I'll keep pushing. I'll be late to it too. I'll be like, hey, it's just the injuries and he's still building up and the physicality, right? Because he is athletic, but in order to be able to be, as he mentions in the quotes, I got to be able to defend on that end of the floor. I got to be able to knock down shots. Okay, I'll give you another runway because you are young enough, right? But ironically, the guy that we were so hyped on in Noah Clowney is like falling the wrong direction here too a little bit. Now, it means nothing to him, relatively speaking, but this hasn't been like the second season we thought we were going to get from him either. And that's the nature of draft picks. Like, they can kind of flash sometimes, depending on when they play in seasons makes a difference. Like, Dariq Whitehead might have a really nice run here to close out the year over the last 9 games. It's not going to matter as much as when you're playing high leverage basketball next season, potentially, and the games really matter. And the teams you're playing against are putting their best out. And you're not just doing a tank off with some of the lower level guys or teams that are going to the playoffs and resting as well. So there's a lot that goes into it. It is a bummer. I'll throw in before we come back around to talk some Bucks here. You mentioned buying stock low. That is the equivalent of the New York Football Giants signing Russell Wilson and seeing our friends, double plug, over on FanDuel, shifting the win total projection from 3.5 to 5.5 in a matter of like hours after the signing of Russell Wilson, who I don't believe is capable of moving the needle like that. Nevertheless, do not start buying over totals on the New York Giants and probably not the Brooklyn Nets next season either. On the other side of this, though, the Bucks and you all, the fans, asking questions about trades and pick packages. We'll do that here in just one moment. Golly, as we tie a bow on our Fan Take Friday here, talking about everything Brooklyn Nets. I'll make sure to get the names up here for who had these questions. A couple of different people, one over on X, one over on YouTube. We'll start with the pick package here. Someone asked Doug if the Nets could be possible for them to package, say, 26 and 17 as they stand right now to try to move up the board a little bit to get somebody. The real question here is are the talent pool enough, murky enough, where teams would be willing to move around the board from, say, 11 or 12 into the 20s if the Nets saw a guy in Nolan Traore who's been talked about, right? Who maybe we want to go get, but it's going to take giving up a couple of picks and condensing down into one, right?
Yeah, this is where I think we talked a little bit of this last podcast or 2 podcasts ago, where it's like, I think teams' internal boards are going to really differ in this draft, and it's going to be kind of the Wild West because players are good. Like in other drafts, your boards might differ, but like maybe no one's worth really taking a swing for, right? Like you might have, the Magic a couple years ago were like, we're high on Jett Howard, baby, and they just drafted him over slot, right? And so it's like, okay, you're fine. You might take a swing. But that was a draft too where, it wasn't like it was super deep. This draft is, by all accounts, pretty deep, but it can vary. I think it's going to vary wildly on what teams want. So I don't know. I could see them maybe trying to do that. I could definitely see that Mark's having a guy or a couple guys that he really likes, and they're going to be heavily involved in the draft process this year because no matter where they land, they have to be. They're clearly going to be all in on the draft process because they have guys at every stop. So it's like they're going to need to know everything. So I think they're going to have a really clear look at the landscape. They're going to know there's lots of flexibility. My guess is he's going to zero in on a few dudes. I could definitely see that happening. I just think that sometimes these other teams don't want to do it because there's just like sort of like weird organizational risk to trade out of a spot and like have someone else get the guy that you could have taken because you never lived that down. And I think that that's a tricky spot for a draft that has lots of talent. It's not that tricky a spot when it's like, oh, OKC lets Dallas go up and get Dereck Lively because OKC is like, whatever. Like, is Dereck Lively going to be the next MJ? Probably not, right? But on a really deeper draft, it's a little trickier. So anyway, a long-winded answer to say is maybe, but I think for sure what's going to happen is there's going to be lots of teams that have their guy, and their guys are going to be very wildly around who they are. And they might be really incentivized to go get them.
It'd be interesting to, I agree with you. And by the way, if you're the Nets, right, no one will say, well, I will say this. What would be fascinating is the Nets are there. The draft board is move up the board to get somebody in that 10, 11, 12 around there. And the Brooklyn Nets now get questioned by the fan base saying like, hey, how come team X was able to package picks and move up the board and you didn't? So, it's like the worst of all worlds. We got 4 picks. The board falls where it does. It's so deep. It's so talented. But if somebody moves up and gets somebody, for a fact with the state of this franchise, all next season, it would be like, say it is someone that goes up the board and gets Malik from, from Duke. They go, that was a center. How come why didn't you go get him? You could have packaged up to get him. And then if your 2 guys don't show up and they don't play well, right? And this is a damned if you do, damned if you don't for Sean Marks from that perspective. But I do agree that you can sit there and let the board just come to you and say like, hey, this is where we were slotted. There's a lot of deep players. We don't have to go crazy. A couple of quick ones I want to get to here. One was just the idea of if this offseason you had the opportunity to throw a bunch of stuff at the Bucks to go get Giannis, would you give it all up? What would you guys think of a Giannis trade that required giving up this year's first, Milwaukee's first, and a few, he said very casually, and a few future first, plus a young player? That was from Other Birds over on X.
I mean, anything else?
Yeah, I know. It's like and then a few more first picks, and then so that was the Nets say the Nets pick at 5. You give them that. You give the Bucks their pick back at 17. You give him like 2 future firsts as well, although a few means 3, and then probably like Cam Thomas as well, like just for fun.
Yeah, like I mean, just keep throwing it. No way, I wouldn't touch this. I wouldn't. There's no chance. And I'll watch them do it, but I wouldn't even think about this. It's like you got to stick to it. You got to hope that they kind of spike some higher odds than they have afforded themselves the opportunity to do. And trading for a guy like Giannis, who's not exactly a spring chicken on his body type, and
who, hate to break the news to you, you trade for Giannis, you're still a few moves away from being a championship contender with just him on
you're
this
many
roster.
moves
like,
away.
You know what I mean?
You're many moves away. Yeah, like you're not even.
So
you're
it's not
close.
like, oh, we got Giannis, but great. Now try to figure out. Now break down the 3-year window where you become a contender before he's almost 40. Like you know,
I just don't see it at all.
Conversation.
I don't. Yeah, they don't have it. They don't have any pieces. They have no other pieces. Like Giannis plus Cam Thomas. I mean, we just saw what Giannis and Dame looked like, and it wasn't exactly unbelievable. And I'm not saying like whatever you want to say about it. It's like score first, on ball guard that can't really play that great defense. Okay, well, we saw what that looked like. That wasn't amazing. It wasn't terrible, but Cam Thomas isn't Dame. And so I'm just saying that like it's because I know someone's gonna be like, well, what about Cam? I know someone will come in and say that. So it's like, okay, well, we kind of saw what that looks like a little bit, and there's problems with it. And you have like no Brook Lopez analog where you can like have a floor spacing center that can allow Giannis to take 2 steps and dunk from the foul line, right? And that can kind of sit like strong side corner, which is what Brolo does at times. And so they did like you can't play him with flag. There's just too many problems. There's too many problems with it.
If this was Luka, when they in the cover of darkness in the middle of the night trade him to LA, of course,
obviously
send everything out amazing, right? But barring that, and there's very few players that I would say that about. Almost every other situation, I'd be saying you have all these picks, just be patient. Just build through the draft because you've done it is very much in tandem with the fact because you've done the superstar version. It doesn't mean every version of it's going to be the same, but gosh, that didn't work out in any way, shape, or form. Try this other thing that you haven't been able to do for years. Last one I'll throw in here because he has been with us since the very beginning. There was this is BK Wele. You know that he's always in for it. First of all, a tank season of 25-26 would be like 34 wins in a play-in game. That's his first one. But more importantly, do you think the front office would make a move for a young star if available? He cites Zion, Melo, Ja, the guys of that ilk. Do you think there's like a version of that the Nets have a discussion around? Because by the way, the names in that group, there's very different things happening with each one of those guys for different reasons.
Okay, just ask yourself this question: does any of those guys seem like a Sean Marks guy? like that's not.
You're right, exactly.
so I'll start with that. Like I'll keep my opinion out of it. Do any of those guys strike you as a guy that Sean Marks would want to go for? I mean, that is the easiest no. Is not like Zion, no way, because of the health stuff. He's been awesome when he plays, by the way. Like but whatever. Like there's just too much baggage there. He, by the way, is the most interesting of the 3 for me, of those 3. Yeah. Melo is like, no way that guy has anything that Sean Marks seems to value. So like, and by all accounts, he's a good dude, and it's not even that. It's just like the play style is so. I'd be all the way out. I cannot watch him play. It is so lackadaisical. It's just too.
By the way, not a Jordy guy. That wouldn't be a Jordy guy either. Like you're saying,
no way.
That wouldn't be a Jordy guy. You want to?
It doesn't seem like it.
Ball out there.
And I don't even think he is lackadaisical. It just seems lackadaisical. Like it's just.
I
find it to be impossible to watch. And then Ja, just like it's just way too many injuries, and he's got some baggage too. And so I just
Zion easily would be the guy out of that list. I would say Zion would be the guy that you'd have a conversation about. Is the price point right? He has the injury history, right? Like I could have the conversation where I can see Sean Marks having that conversation. I can't really.
There's a world where Zion Williamson can be the best player on a championship team. I think. I don't think it's likely, but of those 3. I think he can be the best player on a championship team. Everything kind of has to break right, and you have to have the right players around them. I mean, I guess you could say that about anybody, but I would give him the highest chance. He's also got the lowest floor of the group because he could be like out of the league in 2 years because of injuries, and he just can't get the weight down or whatever. So his floor is the lowest of that group too. But I think the ceiling is the highest. But it just doesn't matter. Like we've been around this podcast and we were on this team long enough to know. Just look at Sean Marks. This is not the dude. These are not the 3 dudes that he would attach his ship to for sure. And so I think just looking at it through that lens helps you answer some of these questions a little better.
And while we may not know a ton about these guys coming out of the draft in terms of what their NBA personalities are going to be like, it's a really good point that you bring up. Put it through that prism too. In a deep draft class, wherever the Nets are slotted to pick, think about guys that fit the Sean Marks, the Jordy Fernandez, like the Brooklyn Nets kind of mold of what they're trying to do. Because when you feel like the talent may be marginally separated, that means you can pick your guy, not the guy, and you can kind of maybe get in the weeds a little bit more on some of those traits. So should be fun stuff. That's going to wrap up another beautiful Fan Take Friday. I think we did a great job.
Did a great job. I mean, come on, obviously, we live to serve the fans, and the fans should really live to serve us. I don't really know another way to put it. Okay. Make sure you subscribe over on YouTube and leave a comment. These comments, as the one that you're going to hear in a moment, can make their way onto because Adam better read this one. Can make their way onto the show.
Or they responded to it off pod. Now we get to respond to it on.
All right. So make sure you subscribe over on YouTube.
Stop making excuses for how bad the traveling is these days and stop attacking older people. Who cares if people could only dribble with one hand, which has nothing to do with anything? Unsubscribed again. And that, of course, is a future subscriber, Daryl7589.
Hopefully, RIP and one of the all-time great poets. We'll be back again tomorrow talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.
Oh, basketball. Am I right?